welcome back to Love Your Food. This week we've got a great recipe for you and we're making tacos. Now, tacos are pretty much anything wrapped up in tortillas. We prefer corn tortillas for this. It's a little tastier for us, but this week we're using beef. We're using ground beef. This is not your typical El Paso dried seasoning from a packet idea. So here we go with some ingredients. We have some onions. We have some jalapeno pepper. We also have one of these nice poblano peppers. We also have a tomato, some beautiful garlic, and then our spice mix here, which has a few different things in it here. We've got some oregano, cumin, salt and pepper, and then beef, of course. So we're going to start with our onions. We are just going to mince those up. Pretty largely diced, actually. And same with our poblano pepper. We want them diced. We don't want tiny, tiny little pieces. This is going to be a little bit of texture and flavor in our recipe. So our big veggies we are going to dice. Now the poblano pepper, not particularly hot. This one actually was a little surprisingly hot. And the easiest way to chop this up is just to cut it into large sort of sheets like that, and from there you can just stack it up and cut it into long strips. And take your long strips and just dice from there. There we go. So we are definitely going to get started with the small vegetables. So we have our garlic here. Now this is great fresh garlic from a friend of ours who grew it. And we want all these small veggies really nicely minced. So this is all just for flavor, so it doesn't need to be texture. It should be pretty small. So we're just going to keep that really, really tiny. That's just one clove. We're actually going to use a lot more than that. Here's the rest of the garlic that we're going to be using. And we're going to chop all of that up the same. And the same with our jalapeno. Now we're actually going to keep the jalapeno with the seeds and the center because this one is going to provide a little bit of heat for us for this recipe. So we're just going to start with some pretty thin slices into rounds. And then from there, we're just going to chop it into a small, basically a minced state after that. And the whole idea of that is this is going to be a bit more heat and lots of flavor as well. So we're going to take our pan, let's get that hot. Now we're going to use a little bit of bacon grease to get things started here. So make sure your pan is good and hot. Get your bacon grease nice and sizzling in there. And then the first thing we're going to do is get our beef going in here. So once you get a little bit of shimmer on that bacon grease, or oil of your choice, it doesn't have to be bacon grease, you can use vegetable oil for this as well. And we're going to season our beef a little bit. So a little bit of salt on there, some black pepper. And that's of course going to be to taste. Now we're using pretty lean beef here. We like the 80-20 for this. But you do want some fat in there because we're going to be using that to cook our vegetables a little bit later. So season our beef into our pan. Want to make sure you flip it out away from you so that if there's any splatter, it will go away from you. And we're going to season the other side now. And you can see we got a sizzle going already. We definitely want a good bit of color on there. And our other beef goes in as well. And salt on the other side as well. Now, you don't have to use nonstick for this. You can also use cast iron, which has nicer heating properties, but our largest pan is nonstick, so we're going to use nonstick for this. So once you've got a good sear on the bottom of your beef, you want to just break it up a little bit. We don't want one large patty. We want it in smaller pieces to sprinkle onto our tacos. So here you see a good bit of color on there, and we're going to add our garlic and jalapeno pepper to that. And we're going to let that cook in. So once you have that in there, you've got some good color on the bottom of your beef. Get your jalapenos and your garlic in there, and give it a good stir, and start to get some of that. We're also going to add our spice mix here. And let all those aromatics really cook a little bit. Wake up those flavors and get them really nicely melted with the beef. So you can turn the beef over, get that the uncooked underside, a little bit of color. And once that's all well combined, we're just going to let that cook for a little while. And while that's cooking, we're going to move on to our tomatoes. So we want to dice the tomato. Now we're using a field tomato here. We prefer to get local tomatoes, of course, because they are a lot more flavorful. They're allowed to ripen on the vine instead of ripening on the truck. So we're just going to give this a nice rough dice. Don't need to peel the skin off or anything. It'll all go into our beef mixture. Now, if you're using a wetter tomato, it's perfectly fine to use it without the seeds. Now, this one is a particularly meaty variety, so we're going to use the whole thing. But you can always take out the seeds if it's just too juicy a tomato. That's fine. So we're going to move all of the beef off to one side here of our hot pan, and you can see this is the grease from the beef, and we're going to put our onions and poblano pepper in there, and we're just going to let it cook in that hot oil. So while the beef is still cooking on the other side, we're going to get some nice color and really cook that onion and pepper until it is translucent and softening. Now, if your pan is as full as this, you definitely want to be careful for this next part. A little bit of seasoning on those vegetables. And then once they're well and softened, we're going to mix them in with our beef. So just gingerly mix it all in there. You can see some great color, that nice searing, the Maillard reaction on the beef there. Great flavor in that. And we're just going to blend it all together until it's well combined. Once you have everything well combined, we're going to add our tomato as well. So here we go. Just going to toss our tomato in there. Now this is going to add a little bit more liquid to everything. We're just going to mix it all in. It probably doesn't need any more seasoning at this point. But you're definitely going to want to taste it before you serve to make sure that you don't need any more seasoning. Now, we like to heat up our tortillas. These are our little corn tortillas. We just heat them up on our gas stove here. You can heat them up in a frying pan. They don't have to be toasted, but we prefer it to taste a little nicer that way. You can also use, if you have a toaster oven, you can toast them in there, that's fine. And then pop it on a plate, and you're just going to spoon some of your topping, some of your taco meat in there. You can see our queso in the background, a little cameo appearance there. And then we like to garnish this. We've got some sliced red onion in there. We have a little bit of sliced jalapeno that we didn't add to the meat mixture. We're using a little bit of feta cheese on that. And cilantro is always traditional as well. And that's really it. Now you can make a salad out of this as well. You can add refried beans to your tacos. Lots of varieties here. There are lots of different kinds of tacos as well. This is just beef, but there are also chicken and pork varieties that are easy to use. If you like this recipe, please like and subscribe. And if you have any other ideas that you'd like to see Chef Caleb try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. And remember to love your food.